Nikola Jokic and Anthony Davis, two of the best players that the league has to offer. On one hand, you have Nikola Jokic, who's arguably the best passing big that the league has ever seen. I would make the argument that he is. And on the other hand, you have Anthony Davis, who's a freak of nature, aka the brow. And in this video, we're going to determine who is the best big in the league, the Joker or the brow. But before we get started with this video, make sure you guys follow me on my social media accounts. The links are down below in the description box, and the accounts should be displayed on the screen right about now. In addition to that, make sure you guys also check out my webpage where I post articles and blogs. I just posted one about the Los Angeles Lakers and how they've reached their final form headed into the Western Conference Finals. So make sure you go and check that out. All of the links are in the description box down below. But before we get started with this video, let me introduce the rules. For starters, I'm going to talk about one player and their strengths and weaknesses, and then I'm going to talk about the other player and do the same thing. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to give my opinion about who is the better player and my reasoning why. So now that we've got that out the way, let's get started with this video. Our first contestant, and that is Nikola Jokic.
Jokic, put it up.
Nikola Jokic is easily one of the most skilled bigs in the NBA. Standing at 7 feet tall and weighing 250 pounds, Nikola Jokic has the ability to do things that many players of his size cannot do. Not only can he shoot the ball from outside of the paint and extend his range to the three-point line, but he's also one of the best playmakers in the NBA. Not just for a big, but for any player in the NBA. Like honestly, if you go watch a Nikola Jokic passing reel, he does things and makes plays that you'll never see coming. His full court passes are a thing of beauty, and the instinct that you have to be able to do what he does as a playmaker is at an all-time high. But his passing is not the only thing in his arsenal. He also has the ability to put the ball on the floor and score in a plethora of ways, whether it's taking it in the paint and banging down low with post moves, or taking it to the mid-range game. And though his shot is ugly as fuck, he can still shoot the ball from behind the arc. But despite all of the praise that I have heaped upon Jokic, the most impressive part about his game is not even his game in itself. It's the fact that he shows up in the playoffs. His intangibles are through the roof. People talk about leaders in the NBA, but Nikola Jokic is easily one of the most underrated leaders in the league today. In his first playoff run, he was able to put up numbers of 25 points and grab 13 rebounds, while facilitating 8 assists a game, while also shooting 51% from the field, 39% from behind the arc on 4 attempts, and to cap it off, he shot 85% from the free throw line. This was his first playoff appearance. For a player that had multiple chances to make the playoffs and failed for a couple of years, him making the playoffs last year was a huge success for the team, to the point that even if they went out in the first round, at least it was a step in the right direction. But he was able to lift that team to a 7-game series win against the San Antonio Spurs and played great basketball. And despite the fact that they did go out in a very heartbreaking way in a Game 7 against the Blazers, Jokic showed up every single step of the way. And you have to give him credit for that. And it wasn't just a one-season thing, as he is proving it right now this postseason that he is one of the best players in the league. Because it doesn't matter if it's Rudy Gobert, Ivica Zubac, JaMychal Green, Montrezl Harrell, Jokic is going to get buckets because that's just what the Joker does. But now this is where all of that praise ends, because I must present the other side of Nikola Jokic, the weaknesses. And there really is only a couple of them, but they are still glaring. Defensively, that has been his biggest problem throughout his entire career, as his lateral quickness isn't great and he is slow-footed, so at least the team's taking advantage of him in pick and roll scenarios or ISOs. But despite him being a liability in those situations, I would hesitate to say that he is a defensive liability. Another weakness about Jokic is his passiveness, because as good as he is as a playmaker, if you're the best player on the team, you must be prepared to take over the game when they need you to. And sure, this playoffs he's been doing so, but there are still moments where I watch Jokic and he defers a little bit too much, especially when you look at some of the players on his team that struggle with consistency, aka Jamal Murray. But that's enough of me criticizing Jokic, because that's really all I have to say. Great playmaker, can get the ball in the basket in a multitude of ways, and is one of the best bigs and players in the NBA, a top 10 player to be specific. But now it's time to move on to the next player. Obviously, you guys know it's Anthony Davis.
He's getting it back. Well, no, Barnes going to the basket. Blocked by Davis. Lakers win it on the block by AD.
Standing at 6'10" and weighing roughly 250 pounds, Anthony Davis has established himself as one of the best players that the league has seen over the last decade. He's been an all-star on 7 different occasions, led the league in blocks 3 times, and has made 3 All-NBA teams as well as 4 All-Defensive teams, including 1 this year, and actually finished second in the Defensive Player of the Year race behind Giannis Antetokounmpo. Offensively, he's one of the best players in the league, very skilled in the post, and has a really solid and underrated mid-range game. From 3, he's not the greatest shooter in the world, but he can step out from behind the arc to the point that he can stretch out the defense and create space for others on his team, such as LeBron James. This year, he's had one of his best years yet, averaging 26 points and 9 rebounds as well as 3 assists, shooting 50% from the field as well as 33% from behind the arc on 3 attempts a game, while shooting 85% from the free throw line. One of his biggest strengths, if not his biggest strength, is his ability to defend, because as I mentioned earlier, he's made a couple of All-NBA defensive teams as well as some top 3 Defensive Player of the Year finishes, and this year he continued his amazing defensive exploits with another great defensive campaign. He's an amazing rim protector and has the ability to switch on all 5 positions, and even though I'm not comfortable putting him on a point guard or a forward throughout the entirety of a game, when you watch that Rockets series that just transpired, he did a really good job on Harden in a lot of the one-on-one situations. So it's not like AD can't be valuable on the perimeter, but his biggest strength is his ability to defend the rim. But now that I have summarized what he does well on the court, it's time to address what he does wrong. And there really aren't that many things that you can point to because he's great on both sides of the ball. So what is really his weakness? Well, some of you may be surprised about my answer, but I actually think his weakness has nothing to do with his game. I think it's about what he chooses to play on the court, which is his position. The power forward. He needs to cut that shit the fuck out because Anthony Davis, he should be playing the center. And the Lakers are actually built better when he's playing the center position, because in the modern NBA, power forwards are usually floor spacers nowadays, with guys like Davis Bertans, Kevin Love, Robert Covington. I could just keep going on of numerous floor spacers at the 4 position. And when you got Anthony Davis there at the 4 along with JaVale McGee, it can kind of hinder the spacing of the Los Angeles Lakers, hence having to force AD to shoot a career high in 3-pointers. And sometimes his shot selection can be a little bit off with the Lakers this year, and it all ties back into the fact that he just doesn't want to play the center position. Sure, defensively the Lakers would take a step back, as obviously having 2 rim protectors in JaVale and AD, or AD and Dwight, depending on whichever lineup they run, is definitely better on the defensive end, but offense trumps defense, so there you go. But to be fair, that's really where it ends in my complaints about Anthony Davis's game. He doesn't have any weaknesses offensively that's a glaring issue, and he doesn't have any weaknesses defensively that's a glaring issue. All of his weaknesses really tie into what position he wants to play. But now that I have addressed both players' strengths and weaknesses, it is time for me to give my verdict about who is the best big man in the NBA today, and my answer is Nikola Jokic. Now I know a lot of people are probably going to comment this exact same thing. Yo, AD's better defensively and they're both good on offense. So shouldn't AD trump Jokic because he's better on both sides of the ball and Jokic isn't? Well, that's not really how it works. For example, let me present you 2 players, Steph Curry and Kawhi Leonard. On one hand, you have Kawhi, who's a great offensive talent and one of the greatest defenders ever. And then on another hand, you have Steph Curry, who's not that great on the defensive side of the ball and can be a liability in one-on-one situations. And then on offense, he's one of the greatest offensive players ever. And many people think Steph Curry's better than Kawhi. Sure, Kawhi's better on both ends, but Steph Curry offensively does things that are far more valuable and impactful towards wins than Kawhi Leonard could ever do. And I believe that same exact argument applies towards Nikola Jokic versus Anthony Davis. Sure, AD is much better on the defensive side of the ball, and I would even say he's a better scorer as he's more aggressive than Jokic, but the problem is that AD's game isn't suited to really be a number one because his game is just not impactful enough to be able to lead a team to consistent playoff success as the best player on the roster. And even now that he's in LA, he's playing with a guy that can play make for not just him but for the entire roster in LeBron James. Meanwhile, in the case of Nikola Jokic, he can impact the game in more ways than AD can, whether it's as a ball handler, playmaker, three-point shooter. He can do all of that better than Anthony Davis. Hence, he really is just more impactful as a player towards success and winning games than Anthony Davis ever could. And it's really just about how they play. It isn't about the fact that he's a better player from a skill perspective. It's just about how their play styles impact winning basketball, and I think that Nikola Jokic is miles ahead of Anthony Davis in that department. Hence, I believe he's the better player, making him the best big man in the game of basketball today. But that concludes this video, you guys. Let me know your opinions down below in the comment section, and also hit that like if you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of love on my last video. I appreciate all of the support. I'm almost at 50K. I love you guys. Also, do not forget to check out my website. All the links for my social media are in the description box. Y'all stay safe and have a great day. Peace.